So welcome everyone. This is the Slapering Press reading for debut poetry collections. We have 8 wonderful readers here today. It was a hard choice. Many books came over the transom. You're just in for a treat. There are many different types of poets here. It's kind of a wild course, but it's truly a privilege to introduce these 8 readers. I remember so well the thrill of and bewilderment of holding a galley of a first collection of poems in my hand, the compression of time, the many years of creative work, sitting in the glossy covers printed with the kind of hopeful blurbs, kind of shepherding a first collection into the world to new readers. And there were so many that came over the transom, as I said. It was hard to choose, you guys. So, but I think you'll really enjoy hearing each other, and you've got a full audience. I'll try and get out of the way as quickly as possible and just give a tiny intro for each poet who will read for 8 minutes. And Mariah Lanzer, our wonderful co-host, without whose technical expertise we would not be gathered here. She'll put the poets' bios and buying information into the chat. So our first poet is Jared Beloff, who will be reading from his collection, Who Will Cradle Your Head, which is published by ELJ Editions in 2003, of which Diane Seuss writes, Jared Beloff treats language with the same attentiveness with which he regards the earth and its inhabitants, revealing a cradling consciousness and the courage to love a dying world. Here are a couple of lines from a poem called The Bird Collector, which was published in one of my favorite journals, The Night Heron Barks. A group of warblers is called a confusion. Spoonbills are called a bowl. I lay them out in lines like ruffled silver, a tide of feathers, a confusion of bodies. They stare out as if wondering, which species is called a drawerful. And in a review by Michaela Prentice, this collection flutters between certainty that we are all doomed and the fleeting hope that someone will survive us. This book wonders in earnest how love can be the most important thing and still not quite enough to save us. Please welcome Jared Beloff.
Thank you so much, Sally. Thank you everyone for being here. It's really wonderful to be here and to read for you. So I have a new book, Who Will Cradle Your Head. It's about climate, it's about parenting, it's about anxiety, of both of those things. And I found recently that one of the worst things about having a book published is that you continue to write poems that could have gone in the book. And so I'm actually going to start with a poem that definitely would have made it if I had written it during the writing. It's actually coming out tomorrow in Alan Squire Publishing Bulletin. It's called Contextualizing a Forest Fire Continually Burning. Oh. And it's after Erica Meitner's Outside the Frame. Outside the frame, a toppled tree, a burning telephone pole, our wish to call our father who is reading headlines, drinking coffee, steam rising from the rim of his face to his face, a pleasant heat. Outside the frame, melting asphalt, a sea of tar, friction and tires, a bus sinks into a road's dark bed before pushing off, for the day's commute. Outside the frame, particulate matter helixed in a window's light, a wheezing refrigerator in an apartment that won't cool down, a son teaching his mother what wet bulb temperatures are before she changes the subject to describe a new mask for sleep apnea. Outside the frame, troubled sleep and orange skies. Outside the frame, brunch across from the park where children are playing, the stacking of spoons, cream gyres, and refilled cups of coffee. Outside the frame, a television's light flickers against our walls, tourists running toward waves, aerial views of refugees carpeting boat decks until we're floating above flames to a panorama of char and embers, a ragged orange line across the horizon, and we rise to the smoke's dim curtain, the white sun that burns behind it, and we lift higher still through the thermosphere, sunset singed clouds, contrails drawing new borders into a map of loss as we catch the sun along the Earth's curve, and we realize all this time we've been burning everything together. I'm going to read a couple from my book. I'm going to read the first one that I ever wrote and the last one that I wrote before it was published. So in this book, which is about all kinds of things connected to climate change, I decided to put a series of poems that connect to a Sasquatch who is going through the world after everything's gone wrong. And he's the only one that's left. And I find it ironic that Sasquatch is the one that survives. So this one is Sasquatch making it to a landfill in Staten Island called Fresh Kills. Sasquatch explores Fresh Kills. This used to be landfill, now wilding, overgrown, settling layer over composted layer, packing sediment, swaddling root, alive, intimate, suffocating. The ivy's searching hands and bittersweet vines swim the humid air filled with cicadas static. My foot hits an edge, a plastic thud, a doll's mottled face, the remains of an abandoned car seat. Who will cradle your head? What imprint will be left as mustard grass and clover spread like muslin over loss? I trace these green recesses like a scar's braided renewal, shading our grief, which is also hope, a weave, which is memory, but also love. So there, a lot of the stuff that came out of into this book came from just how relentless the news was, but sometimes you get quirky stories. And one of them was scientists had found this flower that they thought was soon to be extinct, and so they named it after its extinction. But then later, other scientists found it flourishing somewhere else, and so it wasn't extinct at all, but it still carries the name. So it's Gasteranthus extinctus. Last night's broadcast discussing climate anxiety was interrupted by the magnolias dying outside, shriveled pink, fried at the stems by frost. A week of charred petals, sponsored by some foundation's commitment to a more verdant world. They cling to green shoots the way a memory will stay. My daughter picks blossoms from a fallen pear tree, their translucent sequins against asphalt. What is the name for death's expectancy? Correspondents recall scientists naming flowers for their extinction, a birthing sense of dread, which reminds me to attend to death before the dying. Look, Daddy, but I don't want to grieve for the planet anymore. Scientists, new ones, rediscover thriving flowers untouched by sprawl or the cancer in my father's veins, a premature nostalgia. So I have a major problem at home, and it's that my children love stuffed animals way too much. And we have way too many of them. So this is a poem called Endangered. There are only 17 snow leopards left in an Amazon warehouse. My daughter adds one to our cart. It's incredibly rare to find one, her friend tells her. The algorithm compares the desirability of animals at the bottom of the page, suggests an axolotl, a smirk feathered across its face. She names the leopard Heartspring, tells me she needs a baby to take care of. Each day, the snow leopard stalks me in ads across platforms as I scroll video of Maui's blackened homes, Florida man wrestling a Burmese python. Still interested? Breaking, the death toll is now, there are only 8 left. My daughter continues to leave Heartspring on the cutting board, abandoned by the bathtub, tangled in the laundry's thicket. Last chance, the python wraps itself around his chest. The last couple of weeks have been pretty intense and awful, and I've been thinking a lot about many different reactions to it and what I'm seeing online, and I keep coming back to the figure of Abraham, who is the patriarch for many religions, and his advocacy for people he didn't even know, as God was saying, well, we need to just destroy these cities. So this is called the City of Smoke. The City of Smoke is a braid over charred bodies. Even now, you haven't cried for silence. We crane our necks to see the sky part, cleaved to become a pillar of smoke, a pillar of salt. If there is a God, he must be waiting for the ghost note Abraham called as sand turned to glass. How many hundreds left to burn? How many spared? The City of Smoke is a braid over charred bodies, smudged by our hands. We crane our necks, drink ashes, cover our ears. The only sound is wind, the bowl of our hands. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jared. Shall I introduce Andrew? Mariah, could you change the screen? I'll start introducing Andrew. That was beautiful, Jared. Andrew. Jared, sorry. All mixed up. Okay, Andrew Collard will be reading from his debut collection, Sprawl, published by the Ohio University Press in 2023 and winner of the Hollis Summers Poetry Prize. Sprawl is the reconstruction of the constantly shifting landscape of metropolitan Detroit from the perspective of a single parent raising a young child amid financial precarity. Part memoir, part invention, the book is Andrew Collard's attempt to reconcile the tenderness and sense of purpose found in the parent-child relationship with ongoing societal crises in the empire of the automobile. Here, a mansion may contrast with a burned-out home just up the street. How does one construct a sense of place in such a landscape? Sprawl invokes the sprawl of history through poems that move between the past and the present. I will leave you with these lines from a poem called Diorama. I have to reduce it all to this shoebox model, if only to understand its scale, to guide you past the road signs, each bent slightly in a differing direction, by a stray car's bumper, to the one that reads no outlet, to the living room beyond, where the steady creak of pipes, the water seeping, lulls a man to sleep, and on the TV tuned to breaking news, an explosion rips across a darkened skyline, still frame veiled in wisps of smoke. Please welcome Andrew Collard.
Thank you. Thank you for having me too. This is Sprawl. This came out back in March. And yeah, it's very much a Detroit-centric book in terms of place. If you've never been there, you've probably known somewhere like it. That's to say, it's a place of many places. It's just kind of city stacked on top of city on top of city. This first poem is a poem out of childhood, originally anyway. If we know it's called Cicada Song, if we know the hum of the cicada, the buzz of that. I didn't know what that was when I was a kid, and so I got this idea in my head because I was always hearing far off traffic and things like that, that it might be like yard work or something along those lines, this sort of mishearing. But this is an attempt to sort of imitate the hum, I guess, a little bit. Cicada Song. Oh, the drag days, the vertigo of earth, the sap, the night, the cruelty of jays, the mantises, the years I passed in darkness to elude them, winters languishing above my head. Oh, how many lives behind me now, the carapace, the bumbling climb, the crater, the holes we leave, the city of tubers, subterranean, the sickened leaves, the helicopters. Oh, forgotten weeks my father sang above the world of men, trimmed branches, power cables, sandbox song, descending to the empires of brick and mortar, the side yard, the hose, the child demanding gulps, the water puddling in the grass around the halo of his muddy shoe. Oh, harmony, the saw mower symphony of crickets, the percussive thudding, excavator dump truck traffic, whispering of the freeway, love, oh, can you hear me? I am calling you between the branches, the primordial maple, the wellspring bark, the arm I sprang from. Oh, the fall, the sudden stop, the cushion of the world beneath me. Oh, the burrow and the boy who keeps watch from his window. Oh, those years the whole earth held me, the crusted husk, the body I discarded, the frame I couldn't recognize still clinging to the rotting deck, the old life crouched and pleading to remain erect, to mother me. Oh, the blanket I would draw over the houses, the ants, the daddy long legs wobbling in the dew, the rain, the hose, the shouting children. Oh, to tuck them in, my love. Oh, can you hear me? Heavy magic of the wing, the sap, the chorus of the trees, the wild vibration echo chamber of my chest, the notes dispatched into the heat, the rushing water, siren, box fan, static of the radio, the womb, my love, the space between the trees, the sky that cries, ascend, ascend, and all to find you, all to know I won't return. It's a mistake to read that first, so you lose your breath on that one. This is a poem. This is the first poem in the book, in the first section anyway. It's called Perpetual Motion, which a friend of mine called an autobiography in Cars. It's not quite an autobiography, but I like that idea a lot. If you start thinking of the various cars that or vehicles that you've traveled in over the course of your life, I think the stories just start to sort of reveal themselves. Perpetual motion. I drove, the focus leapt. I slept inside a Civic for 4 nights at a rest stop east of Harper, my whole existence packed into the trunk. I rode like a witness or misplaced luggage. I threw up in the cabin of a duct-taped Cavalier, Crown Vic, Astrovan, Beetle. Blame it on the road noise or the radio, smart-ass friends who put me quick at ease. I shouted out the lyrics of the MC5 from the back seat of a stranger's Chrysler, carried through the tributaries of the night toward what? A bedroom's near total stillness, stray headlights through the blinds, solitude. When I wake to stillness, think of stillness ambushed by how tenuous a thing it is to breathe, listening as my neighbor's lamp or glass bursts against our shared wall. I think of where the crystal stillness leads and whisper, I don't want to go. I circle back, adrift in an age of endless leaving as if home were not extraordinary. I called shotgun, bumped a cyclist, watched my sister swigging whiskey in her Cadillac as she slurred unprompted questions to the sky, the trees, the darkened houses. Ask me where the day began, and I'll tell you everywhere or nowhere how I steered an orphan friend's Kia up and down M3 from Detroit into the sticks until he quieted, then slouched from his grieving and into sleep, while beside the car, the ad-ridden fixtures of the strip malls and the churches blurred into a path of light. We'll just skip right to the end for a little spoiler alert here. This is about saying goodbye to a challenging sort of spot to live. I'll leave it at that. Dear leasing office, dear oil slick, I did not come to curse this plot of earth, brickwork bounce house stricken with resting bitch face, or its Pandora's box of kid feet continually thundering back and forth on the 4th floor. Dear long-emptied bird feeder, ghost, and broken screen, this season's token cliffhanger requires I pack my things and disperse into a cold front of engine rips and oh shit brake whales to let the asphalt eat my tires off mile by mile. Where will I live now with my heart made of shingles, my faulty memory and minivan? Trunk stuffed with shoes as I flounder toward home like a tune pitched above my hearing. Dear weather vane, white pine, dear quick fix drywall, heavy with questions, in memory of strangers knocking after midnight to inquire after a Wi-Fi password or a light or the whereabouts of a missing spouse, I have returned to give this king-size calendar I spilled my days against one last blessing before I go. Let vines reach their fingers across your every fence, ascending the utility poles and power cables. Let the neighbor's wind chime irritate the complex into dissonance. Let the commons reek of garlic and burnt spatula and the AC units stop, drop, or roll midsummer. May the parking space vigilante continue etching cuss words on the doors of random cars to fracture the mask of calm swallowing these dubbed suburban yards, and the phone grinding off and on against your shared wall always exposes myth the notion I've ever been alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Problem with this kind of reading is like it's tasting these really wonderful appetizers and then you move on. Our next reader will be India Lena Gonzalez, and she'll be reading from her collection, Foxwoman Get Out, published by BOA Editions in September 2023 and winner of the Blessing Boat selections. Terrence Hayes says of it, India Lena Gonzalez's debut collection is made of exhilarating body language. Her serpentine stanzas, upper and lowercase characters, and bold exclamations move like Bill T. Jones dancing to Keith Haring's brushstrokes. It's quite a description. Did I mention that India is also a professionally trained dancer and choreographer who has performed at Lincoln Center and the 92nd Street Y, among others? When I read about her dancing background, I was intrigued because I read in an interview that she described the structuring and ordering of Foxwoman Get Out in a very dance-like and sort of flowy way. And this is what she said. The word is flowing. I think of the book as water in terms of how it's constructed, and fire in terms of its content. I did not want to have sections. I didn't want to title anything or break the collection into parts 1, 2, and 3. Those ideas felt too rigid for me, and the whole point of the book is to break free of categorization of any sort. I want to leave you with just these few lines from a poem I particularly admired called For My Future Babies. How you have taken your earthen feet, crawl your way up my bare legs, to my stomach, to my chest. When we are face to face, you rub my head with honeyed hands. Please welcome India.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you all today. It is raining in New York City, so it's nice to be over Zoom and to be able to be in conversation with people without actually having to go anywhere physically.
Yeah.
I'm going to read 3 poems from my debut collection. This is the cover of it, Foxwoman Get Out. The first poem is entitled Act, Pose with Fingers as Though Cigarette, Puff, Puff. Once more unto the breach, once more. Mama has a bad habit of snickering every time I say the word theater. Fee ate her. Jimmy assigns me marriage to James. James goes belly up trying to love me. I stare at him deadly. Jimmy believes this is quite sensual of us. We never even touched. I am told to perform the role of Erykah Badu head wrap in the creation of incense. Opening shot, and my hips are too small. The little black girl inside me dies a little. Oh, mama. The next class, they tell me I have tuberculosis, so die already. I ask them politely to supply the gunshot. Next class, they tell me I am wild-haired virgin in the Bronx who offers myself up to first ding-a-ling to call me savage in limbo. Other schoolgirls are such clementines. Stella, Juliet with a sky of flesh-cut stars. I am Clove with post-apocalyptic limp. Clove who was black dust. Clove nursing his teeny tiny light. Clove trying to make an exit in Jungle Hat, but God bless us. There's simply nowhere left. I scrape baby hairs back, pencil in faux mustache for a devoted effect. Twin tells me I'm not busty enough to be an opera singer, a good one at least. Insert high note. I let James fling me down on tables during rehearsal. Classmates really love this concussion of mine, and this sty in my eye is a testament of nostalgia. Dr. E believes such swelling is a sign of severe loneliness. Twin reminds me that women with a light dusting of acne have always been her favorite. Director asks if I've ever felt like a let you down. And sure, Jimmy, sure I have. Haven't we all? On stage, I'm trying to simulate some internal pink, some veiny placenta truth. I'm left thinking of baby tigers at the National Zoo, how pale and soft their tongues are. And do these stripes on display also cry? I've never seen it. I always like to say, I do have a twin. That's like my disclaimer for readings. I once had an editor read some of my poems with twin and assumed that she was not real and therefore disliked me because he thought I was using twin poetically to have like a mirror to myself. And so I'm always like, she's real, she's loved, she's in the book. She lives and breathes. All right. Second poem is entitled Mommy, a Chest for Healing. My head on your chest. When I fall asleep is when you fall asleep. I'm mumbling for the both of us. Mommy, tell me again how Big Mother is a cast iron pan with all that chitlin grease. How the cute boys down south with their God-fearing mothers sucking on hard candies used to call you high yellow. They spotted the Indian in you. Tell me how Big Mother would sink a rag in hot turpentine oil and pin it to your chest for healing. How her body was an hourglass with many tired years left. How she told you to be particular and never let a boy play in your hair. How tender-headed you always were. I know you as my black hair sky. Remember how her daddy held you up to the light bulb? How he said you were born with a veil over your eyes? He saw you staring straight into the spirit world. There's this dream I have where Big Mother's in the yard out back teaching me about the wind. And I can't hear the tone of her voice. So I reach up for the zipper on her cotton housecoat, but she's really you. Her face, your face, her sturdy legs, your somewhat skinnier legs. I do not feel Big Mother sitting at the foot of my bed with all our other ancestors. So forgive me as I go looking in all the earthly places. You've got that divine prerogative. I'm stuck at planet level. I know you as my worn out saint. Tell me how she came to you in all your many visions afterwards. How Big Mother looked at you right before she passed. How her eyes crossed at the highest point on the ceiling. She saw something up there and finally caught it. All right, before I read the last poem, this book travels from the corporeal to the cosmic. So it starts off in my body, in my person, and it goes back to my ancestry, my lineage. And I think of it as going back as a way of pushing forward, knowing where you come from, knowing what your people have done, who they are. And in that way, it helps you push out into the stratosphere, to outer space, to spirit, all of that. All right, the last poem is entitled, Young Horse So Young. I am mountain after fire, no Hopi, Zuni, just a pulsing little shard. I am young horse so young I cannot stand. Young horse, I do not know footprints. I threw up blueberries, heaving into plum, cried while retching. My sainthood came right on out. I felt large. Self-excavation of my indigenous root onto lap, onto white embroidered dress, twin unzipped my back. I said, I cannot stand. I said, now a gap, a hole with no dirt. Here in desert, I met you, Tony. You asked what tribe, I answered, young horse so young, you released the yell, Tony, we are both left hands, but you are ambidextrous. I offer you my left hands so I can beat the out west fragility out of me. You said focus, I said focus. I said, I'm being torn wide open out here. I said, I am being erased. What to tell my parents? I throw myself on all your sterling silver and roll in black beauty turquoise, plug my nostrils with gemstone. A wolf is a wild dog. Come on and teach me how to work my hands, Tony, how to make something with my red, like the wind rendered New Mexico into hard rock, dirt, and dust. Like you rendered this bangle. Can I be your singular braid? Can I nod off in your wide brimmed hat? This young horse so young is still tribeless, and my hooves have gone out again. I try not to attach myself to you, but I am your old polishing cloth, a useless thing. Tony, wait for me to come back now, will you? I place all your jewels in between my organs. I am a cut in this world. I've stood in the sun so long, my brains turn stew, soft spot too soft. Great-great-grandfather, it's you come back as Tony, saying your heart goes with me. Great, I believe you are the oldest church in Native America. You believe the top of my head is full of too much light. Great, I've got to ask you something now. Well, I've still got a hold of you now. Will you please just skin me already? Like one of them foxes the men wear around their waists? Will you whisper a prayer into my ears? Lay me belly up and start in on the knifing, take my hide, eat my body. Great. I can be a heavy spirit sitting at the foot of your bed. I can be so great. These days, all I see is sorrel. These days I eat the desert and I'm all dried up. Thank you.
Wow, beautiful. Beautiful. So if we have time for a Q&A, maybe put your questions in the chat as we go along so that we don't take time at the end for them. We may or may not be able to use them, but you can do them as you go along. Form your questions as we go along. These readings are amazing. Okay, so our next reader is Nicholas Goodley. They will be reading from Black Swim, which was published by Copper Canyon in 2022. And here is what they said about their writing, which is a kind of elegant reworking of Keats's negative capability. I just loved it. It says, I love to write so as to be honest with myself or the self. A human can be several things at once that overlap and contradict, and to name those things, not resolve them. Here's the beginning of a long poem I loved by Nicholas called Evening Prayer. I'm going to read you a little bit of it, and then his commentary on it for the Poetry Society of America, which I just thought was really wise and something we could all kind of share and learn from. So this is the beginning of Evening Prayer. Evening Prayer. Who bestowed upon me this habit of wanting music from a pen, this addiction to the gentleness of vowels? What are these notes from people's heads? What is the point? And this is what Nicholas said about the poem. As poets, we all know the importance of language, how the right combination of words can change a life forever. Language is scary in that way, and we as poets are taking a big leap to assume that we are the ones capable of wielding this power. Aren't we full of nerve? And then we believe that those words may free somebody else. And I began to see it as a blessing, that there are so many other talented writers who have existed before me who I can draw upon. And it's a blessing too that I am here to be of some use to other writers coming after me. And this is the line I love the most. It's a miracle how much we can mean to each other at any given time. And I was thinking of all of you reading to each other. So please welcome Nicholas Goodley.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much. All right, this is Black Swim that I'll be reading from. I have 4 poems that I'd like to do. And this first one's the first poem in the book. It's called My Black Spell. I breastfed one hunger after another. Fear me, I know the weight of playthings, the trampoline in the crawl space, our family, lost an older sister. I am fearless, subtle, phoenix older child. There was a time I could bite and crack into pink jawbreaker, fuck my mouth up into red ants, and explain away the blood in my gums. I've got muscle and am articulate, forged from the hurt parts of the ground. Domestic life was child's play. breaking one bone at a time, all fun and games, lives in my hands. I could do so much with miniatures. Throw the piano into the kitchen, attaboy. Literally sexual, stripped the boys naked on the lawn. I wanted to be Michelangelo with Barbie's arched feet, or a Bratz that could bend at the knees. There is spit in my circumstance. They call me unstone. They call me unmusic. Baby, 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 voodooed alive, seashell from familial waters, healthy and unimaginably magical. I'm watching your back best I can, baby brother. Follow fish, follow what runs to us, home, licking with gumbo. I do not have words for all the things I desire. In the summer, my hair was braided. I am your brother best I can. All right, this next one's called R&B Facts. All mermaids are black and only hunt sailor men who talk that fuck noise. Egypt is the proud grandmother of Harlem, and she sits back in her chair with a switch in her hand. There is a brother and a sister somewhere, just right for every child. If we didn't murder Black boys, we would have voices that speak in song, and the music we'd make would birth storms. We all can walk on water, as long as we never said no anti-Black shit. If we lit a candle for every pain hurled towards trans folk, whole planets would be up in smoke. If we planted a tree for every word against women, the ground would lose sight of the sun. A dead child's name at the top of your lungs, like an earth-splitting lightning rod, has the power to remember them back. 1 in 3 Black girls learns to swim by being chased away from the shallow end of a brown community pool. 2 out of 5 Black families know death as that play cousin who sleeps over under comforters on the living room floor. There are Black hills that only grow in the heat of the sun, made of thick, curling hair. The ghosts of Black slaves are waiting in one big front room with good music till their whole families are free. Melanin, it's been proven, has endured more than any beam of steel. The Greek goddess of peaceful resistance has died in a long burning fire and is buried in a fruitless urn. Nina Simone was born in the 15th century. Her crib was the bottom of a full boat. The bigger the hoops, the braver the body. Armpit hair is permanently sexy. Acrylic nails start fires in a heavy heart. Melanin bleeds a softness wetter than silk. No one survives Etta James. The strongest homes are built on onyx, brick on muscle covered in charcoal skin. Melanin is a blessing, gold melting in our hands. Melanin is light on every surface of the day. There is no color on earth that is not some child's favorite. If every human stood shoulder to shoulder, we would make an iron castle with beating veins between the walls. All of us lying head to head is a river feeding an ocean too black to swim. Okay. This next one's called First Poem. So first poem. I had ever written was about green bug because I painted one at school, or the painting came later to go with the poem, or the poem was about gold and was printed in rainbow letters, and the painting had a rainbow in it. The picture was a blue watering bucket, a butterfly, an orange and pink sunset made of vertical stripes, and a purple rainbow, and a rose or tulip, and the poem had a refrain. It was a song for class, or I wrote it for my dance teacher because she thought I was a poet, and I read it to the class, or just to her. She said beautiful or thank you, and the painting and poem are in a frame together now, and it matters that where it all started was a good garden. And this last one is the evening prayer. Who bestowed upon me this habit of wanting music from a pen, this addiction to the gentleness of vowels? What are these notes from people's heads? What is the point of being the last one to speak a beautiful language? I am a fraction of what I could have been. What else can I contribute? I am outdone by children with more to lose. A teenager instructing me how to breathe. These kids are quick. They grab the hands of their neighbors, pull each other safely up for air. There is your enemy and son, your wife and brother, your prize and secret cross, golden fleece and weighted cast. Heaven knows I want this to be a poem people reach for. How often have I told myself I am not strong, and time keeps proving me wrong. When snow doesn't come, when I am not enough, let me do the right thing and make a rope of words. Let it begin with me. Even now, there is richness beyond belief. Vulnerable warrior, what risk is there? We who already die in so many places, this not even the worst of them. No one line is revolutionary. No one word ever is. I am grateful for not dying yet. I inhale what is in front of me. Everything is changing. Young hearts, any love I can describe for you does not suffice, but you are worth my every effort. One day, you will know love like this and write it better than I. Thank y'all.
What a beautiful word to pass on. Our next poet is Safiya Yama. Her debut collection is Crowded House and was published by ELJ Editions in 2023. Of it, Mathia Harvey says, like a viewfinder with overlapping reels, Safiya Yama examines the way inherited trauma, her parents and brother fleeing military dictatorship in Somalia, can overlay the present day. The poems in Crowded House captivatingly delve into the complexities of the self and what constitutes a home. And Sandra Lynn quotes the poet in saying, "It's strange how things that happened before we were born get braided into our consciousness when trying to understand what we can live by in the various contexts of empire, diaspora, family, a marriage and its dissolution, and within the rise and fall of one's own wildest ideas." Safiya Yama uses the poetic line in weird combinations of extravagance and aestheticism to unearth new glimpses of why human beings act and dream as they do. But for me as a reader, I was most impressed with the wideness of the world that Safiya embraces and encompasses in her writing, set against the specificity of how she addresses her reader and who that reader is. I'm just going to read you a few lines from one of her poems. It's called, "It's Not Really About Them, It's About Us." It's not really about them, it's about us. And I consider broadcasting that thought to the whole wide world. But instead, I sit down to piecemeal these lines in the quiet of my quiet dark for you listening now. Please welcome Safiya Yama.
Thank you so much, Sally, and everyone. Thank you for being here. Just a slight correction. My name is Sophia Jama.
Oh,
It's a
God, sorry.
Somali name. Yeah.
Sorry.
But thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. And thank you to my fellow poets. And I'm just floored by everyone's work. So here's my book, Crowded House, and I'm going to read from it. Wedding day. There should have been roses. Instead, I clutched red and white carnations. We should have invited a few friends, had a party after, but such things aren't possible when one secret marries another. We got married at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. Afterwards, we ate breakfast at the Happy Days Diner on Montague Street. My aunt cried as she drove down from Boston on the I-95 to watch her niece marry a stranger. I'm a gambler at heart, and I slapped my heart down on the green table. People I'd known all my life had let me down too often. My father called from, was it Djibouti, Abu Dhabi? Quote, do you two realize what you're getting into? I'm a philosopher at heart. This was my big moment. How could we know? How does anyone know? So, yes, so this book, Crowded House, explores marriage, divorce, empire, and just finding a home in the world, you know. And so this next poem is kind of a sequence, and I haven't read it publicly before, but here goes. It's a notebook poem. I'm a notebook keeper, and this is straight out of one of my notebooks from years ago. It's called In the Garment District, 8 o'clock Thursday evening, wanderings. I walk into a store that sells only buttons. Secondhand smoke all along the side streets. Certain streets slurry more than others. I skip the poetry reading. The garbage smells, you said, he said. I say, yes, I know. If is a dangerous word, says the emperor of buttons. We talk of Rumi. At the Barnes & Noble in Union Square, I read The Velveteen Rabbit. Zombie undertones? In my heart, I know I will never be a vegan. The moon is half full, more than that. Aunt Janet turned 70 today. Will I ever smoke again? No, I don't think so. All the children's books are either pro-capitalism or nihilistic celebrity crap. Eddies of secondhand smoke all along 38th Street. I pause at the window of the button shop. M-train. I wait until the crazed man is off and get on. I must change my life. I must give up cheese. What is a dream and what is a fantasy? I am troubled by the skin horse. The coworkers sitting across from me on the train have run out of small talk. They watch me write now that I have made eye contact. Will I ever drink coffee again? Will I resist? Quote, it is better to make a mistake than to do nothing, says the emperor of buttons. Do not be afraid of yourself. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and read the title poem, which is a little scary, but I'm going to do it. As we all go into collective labor with our books together, we can do this together. Here it goes. Crowded House. And the poem was written while watching a music video over and over of Don't Dream It's Over. It's a great music video from 1986. Yes, it is a found title, the band Crowded House. So here goes. Crowded house, don't dream it's over. And I think I'll end with this poem. Nonsensical beauty. All the plates he broke on accident. Remember happier days. Honey, it's over, but let's still dream of the early days. That first Christmas in Ireland, that was something. Tinsel walls, hors d'oeuvres I would someday make at parties our friends would come to miss. Reminiscent of 1986. Reminiscent of 1966. My parents' dream kitchen. Pots and pans float and fade. More plates explode. One you broke on purpose. And now I whisper into the drummer's ear. Cameras are rolling. Smile. Near the end, Daryl filmed in our living room. Still together, still hanging on. The oatmeal stood hardening on the stove. Future rocks we'd throw at one another. 1986 was a good year. Maybe the last good year for some time. Now the lead singer is vacuuming, and soon the bassist will play an organ solo, wearing his Matador jacket. Mix and match like thrift stores and flea markets, and you and me. Crowded House has not forgotten a single detail, poring over photo albums. A candelabra lights a corner. I watched this video every night for days, then weeks, until at last I walked across. Green grass did greet me. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you.
Okay, Judy Katz will read from How News Travels, which was the winner of the 2021 Gerald Cable Prize. Where is Judy? Judy is, there you are. Judy is a dear, dear friend. From the early poems she shared over 25 years ago, when we were in the MFA program together at Sarah Lawrence, I could feel her expansive intelligence and humor at work in her poems, engined both by a jeweler's precision of imagery and thought and her most generous heart. I'm so happy that her beautiful book, How News Travels, has arrived in the world. I'm going to read you a slightly edited version of Dennis Nurksey's blurb, which says it better than I ever could. Judy Katz is a brilliant poet. Her work is luminous and transparent as a mountain lake, and under the surface, the complexities. Katz is a storyteller who examines how we use stories, I love this, to smuggle ourselves into the future, how the images we forge of each other conceal us. Sometimes the wide open space of you gone is all it takes to let the whole world in. The voice is so alive, often so playful, and again, you will find yourself in a dialogue with the unknowable. Poems like The Last 5 Minutes are dazzling. How News Travels is a stunning book. And Ellen Bass says, this is a collection to savor, for who can sleep when it keeps arriving over and over, the world. And in these poems, you will find a deep love and reverence for this world. Judy is my favorite kind of poet, who gets the detail just right, like a tiny puzzle piece that she knows just how and where to fit into the largest of ideas and mysteries. please welcome Judy Katz.
Thanks. Thank you, Sally. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Thank you to all the readers. I'm going to scrap what I was going to start with just because I've loved what I've been hearing, and that idea of crowded house just made me feel like I can feel like a crowded house, and that I need to start with this poem as a result. Here's the book, How News Travels. This is a poem called Shopping. I try on the dress and stand in front of the mirror. It is and isn't me. The way the light coming through the rain is and isn't ordinary. The way my 9-year-old is and isn't young anymore. Just look at his front teeth. So many truths at once. I turn to look at myself from a different angle. The saleswoman smiles from the back. It is and isn't me the way beautiful is and isn't the big umbrella my husband thinks it is. How does anyone ever buy anything? The saleswoman is headed my way, curious, no doubt, how the world is, read the newspaper, and isn't, walk, river, fall day, in disastrous shape. And how on certain days being in skin can feel like consorting with a whole collision of people, which is why the dress is and isn't me, and why when she asks, do you like it? I don't even know what she's talking about. So I was realizing that, there are different paths one could take through a book, but we're just gonna dip in here. The book began with some poems, as Sally sang, when I first started writing about the death of my mother. And I think the idea of absence and loss and disappearance and just what isn't visible, how that lives in our bodies and in our lives is a theme throughout the book. So I would like to read 2 poems about the death of my mother. It's hard to read just one because the rhythm, it's hard to break away after just one. So I'm going to read 2 of those. This one is called First Reader. You sat in ivory bra and half slip, your back to me, putting on makeup while I read to you from the step stool in your dressing room. You wanted to hear everything, book reports, essays, poems. While I read, I checked your small round mirror for clues. I knew you were interested if your eyes widened or you raised your brows out of range. Once, I think it was a paper on the Ancient Mariner, you sat back in your chair, mascara wand in hand, and just listened. Years later, your vision gone, neither of us could count on your eyes. I'd walk into a room and find you listening with your whole body. Now that too is gone. I still see the dressing room, your face in the mirror. I still think of you as my first reader. Only now you're part of the silent, unseen audience. No eyes, no body. Now I have your full attention. And this next one is also addressed to the mother. It's called For the Record. After the funeral, Peggy sent a note. She'd heard you made your getaway, as if you'd thrown a few things in a bag and off to the next world. But she didn't see our father rocking those last hours in the corner of the bedroom, or Aaron and me marooned on the bed with you. She must not have heard about the visiting nurse we knew 10 days and trusted more than medicine or blood. The one who said hearing is the last sense to go, and we believed her and spoke to you like midwives at a birth. Relax, we said to your laboring body, it's okay. What can I say? It's trouble getting in and trouble getting out. I've seen it both ways. Is this where I tell you? Sometimes your absence is a brightly lit field I'm lying in, back against the earth, afternoon sun warming my face. Sometimes the wide open space of you gone is all it takes to let the whole world in. I'm going to read one poem that has to do with a different kind of things disappearing, a very New York way of things disappearing, which is kind of a catalog of all the places I went with my husband when we were dating, seemed to disappear after we were there. And it's written in form. It's in a form called a pantoum. Lines repeat, lines are carried from one stanza to the next. You'll hear the repetition in it. It's called Urban Renewal. That little Spanish Chinese place on 81st in Amsterdam, where you asked me to marry you, is gone. Its row of glazed ducks in the window. Where you asked me to marry you, I don't remember what we ate. Its row of glazed ducks in the window are witnesses. I don't remember what we ate the night we first met at Man Ray in Chelsea. Our witness, a mutual friend in town by chance. The night we first met at Man Ray, also gone, a mutual friend in town, by chance suggested you pick me up outside the Zigzag Bar and Grill, also gone, and give me a ride in your beat-up car. You pick me up outside the Zigzag Bar and Grill. You lean across to open my door and give me a ride in your beat-up car that later becomes our beat-up car. You lean across to open my door, and the rest, my love, is history. Our beat-up car, also gone. The rest, my love, is history. That little Spanish Chinese place on 81st in Amsterdam. I wanted to read one poem. I have two left. I wanted to read one poem that I hadn't read before, and I just wanted to say, I don't know if this is the case for others of you, but sometimes you write a poem in a very particular context, or you have something in mind, and then you read it at another time, and the world has shifted, or your world has shifted a little bit, and it takes on new resonances. So this is a domestic poem, but I feel it differently now with all of the heartbreak and horror going on in the Middle East and the kind of warring things. So maybe try and hear it a little bit with that lens too. It's called The Transfer. Where my misery ends, yours begins. I've always felt this to be the case. I wonder, is this happening all over the world? A person turns to their beloved in bed one night and says, I feel angry, ashamed, a lion in my throat. And the beloved holds that feeling for them. Then 2 nights later, the other one shares some past or present pain. Here, hold this. And so it goes. They pass things back and forth between them, water in cupped hands, trying not to spill one drop in the transfer. So I guess my feeling is, instead of inflicting pain, wouldn't it be great to work toward helping each other carry it, carry the sorrow that we surely all feel. Okay, I'm going to read one last poem we have time for. And this one's called The Other Hemisphere. The only thing you need to know is, I guess, another couple poem, kind of. This is traveling to visit our daughter, who was studying in Chile for a semester. And we went with our other 20-something-year-old child. The Other Hemisphere. It shut us up, the new, dumbed us into silence. And when we finally spoke from the back seat of the cab, our eyes glazed with jet lag, we said, "Those arid hills, don't they remind you of New Mexico? And that bougainvillea, it's just like LA." Later, strolling the streets of Santiago, one of us remarked, "This neighborhood could be Tel Aviv." It drove them crazy, our kids, this instinct of ours to reach for the familiar, as if there were only one door in to our middle-aged brains, as if our need to yoke what was new to what we already knew would rob this new place of its singular allure. After all, Chile had been Chile to our daughter for 6 months now, and to the Chileans forever. We tried to temper our comments, held our tongues, except to marvel at the tin-roofed houses that tumbled toward the bay in Valparaiso. We walked our daughter's daily route to town, watched her select a fish in the market, take it from Josefina's salt-withered hands, and ask in Spanish the best way to cook it. 5 days later, when we drove to the Lake District, we began to settle in. We breathed the clean air of Pucón, hiked mossy forests and parched volcanic hillsides. I couldn't get over how capacious this skinny country was. Out the window to the west, a view of what could have been Switzerland, green meadows, cows. To the east, a single snow-capped peak posing as Mount Fuji. I didn't dare say it aloud. I know they want everything to be the first, the only, and it is. Everything is the only of its kind. But also, after decades of living and seeing, you discover there are only so many faces or types of faces on Earth. I have seen my own mother, long dead, in the Feria, the Argentine version of her, what she'd look like if she had lived her life there. And this too is a singular experience. Have patience with us, Chile. If you'll just be California or Switzerland for another few days, I promise we'll let you be Chile. Then we'll carry you with us everywhere we go. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, we have 2 more readers. What a delight. This is just a delight, this whole group of readers. Okay, now we have Stephanie Laterza, and she will read from her debut collection Veras, which will be published by Broadstone Books in the summer of 2023. Well, I guess this last summer. Okay, so the word mother appears in some form directly or in spirit on nearly every page of Stephanie's poetry collection. But the truth of motherhood she shows here is the lesson she learned from a grandmother who spent too much of her life pregnant. The longer you live, the longer you lose. The losses recounted here are often children who are victims of violence, most outrageously perpetrated by those in authority, killed by cops in war, or separated from their families by ICE. For that's the history of the US, the deliberate ripping, the deliberate tearing, the deliberate wrenching of brown children from their mothers' arms on shores, the forced grief played and replayed, all of which determines Laterza to be a good mother to her son, whose cheeks she blankets with kisses at least 20 times each day you've been alive, so that if I lost my life today, you'd have at least one kiss left each day for the balance of yours. Please welcome Stephanie Laterza.
Okay, hello, thank you so much. Yes, I'll be reading from my book Veras, my debut full-length collection from Broadstone Books, which was released this past July. I will get right to it. So the first poem is called Más Allá, and it is a look to the future. How close they come to each other, harina, arena, when grinding between fingertips, lard lubed to make masa. Whenever she decides, whenever she needs to make sense of anything, before anyone wakes to ask her for everything. Abuelita did it so many times she had to have awoken on enough Sunday mornings to fill a century and then 6 more years with half spent with her belly full of one child after another because she had no counsel, other than the priest who told her to remember her obligation to her husband, who my mother said worshipped her like the Virgin Mary, whose heart was only sacred because it was surrounded by a crown of thorns erect and carved of meat and bone. It was said he couldn't help himself, so she let him in at least 15 times. 13 survived, and the priest said she should be grateful. Even when years later she declared what had happened to her was the real sin, every time having to carry another medicine ball for 9 months and to bite her tongue, spreading her chamber open to him whenever he wanted, and especially when he apologized before entering. And afterwards, he let her have her mass, time to herself, he explained to the brood on Sundays, which they cited as proof he was an indulgent husband and father. And afterwards, she made masa from harina like arena, rubbing it with lard until it came, together with salt water, wrinkled like cortexes, squeezing the mass between her fingers, before gathering it between her hands, then raising it in her honey, sun-flooded kitchen, before molding half-suns, filled with cheese and pork pleated, with uniform rays crisped to golden perfection. How much masa did she make after she lost one she wanted, during the trial over her house when her husband's brother demanded it, but lost? But how many times must a woman testify just to prove what's hers? In my aunt's cramped kitchen in Sunnyside, she showed me how to make my own masa and to listen to the contratiempo of my heart that would collapse so many times till I learned, as she did, that the longer you live, the longer you lose. Das, más, no más, y más allá. This next poem is called When No Good Word, and it was originally featured in Hopkins Press. When no good word. So much of motherhood is surviving the night, an emergency waiting room crowded with inadvertent burns, sudden poisonings, falls, the fault of unfathomable seconds, the scorch of tears, adrenaline, burning a mother's eyes awake, her heart caught pulsing in her throat, ribs battered with the sound, waiting, pleading, until some good word arrives. Her child is breathing. They can go home. What then when no good word arrives for a mother? Her son can't breathe. He can't go home. Another son cried out to his mother as a cop crushed his lungs in the street, kneeling on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. In war, dying soldiers always cry out for their mothers. What then when no good word arrives for a mother? The cop shot her daughter 8 times while she slept in her home. After her sleepless shifts as a paramedic reviving people during the pandemic, no medics tried to revive her. What then when no good word arrives for a mother? 2 men shot her son. They chased him in a truck while he jogged in the afternoon. He's never coming home. What then when no good word arrives for a mother? A vigilante shot her son for walking down a street where he was visiting family. He's not coming home. What then when no good word arrives for a mother? The cop shot her son dead in his car in front of his girlfriend in the front seat and her 4-year-old daughter in the back seat. Afterwards, her daughter cradled her own mother, pleading and crying, and she didn't want her to die too. Word arrives too for the school children whom her son helped when they couldn't pay their lunch debt, whose allergies he knew, who waited for him too to come home. What then when no good word reaches a mother? 2 men shot her son down south where he was visiting family. A white woman said he groped her, a lie like so many. After kidnapping and torturing him overnight in a shed where passing witnesses heard him cry out for his mother. They shot him in the head, then threw his body in a river. There could never be a metaphor as clear as those photos. What then when no good word arrives for a mother again and then again? Then again, what then will you do then and again? Until no more, no good word arrives for a mother. This next poem is a triptych, Mulberry Blood, a triptych. 1. Mulberry stains like blood When trampled on, some bleed from the fall, so many fall. When the wind blows hard on a sun-blinding day, mulberries rain down on the back porch. The news reports an 18-year-old rained bullets down on 19 children and 2 teachers with an AR-15. 2. My son did his 4th grade project on the revolution, but the militia only used muskets to fight the bloody redcoats coming. The 19 were mostly 3rd and 4th graders. I explained the Second Amendment was never meant for everyday purchases. It was only meant for militias fighting invaders the way Ukrainian folks fight back against Russia. He learned on the news at school too, that militias are supposed to be well regulated despite the conservative justices pretending to revere, to conceive the framers' intent. But the main takeaway from this summer is to have breath enough left to present on the revolution is rare in America. 3. Standing over mulberries, knowing already which ones make it into preserves and which ones mulch, must be what believers imagine their Almighty does all day long. But at the day's end, I harvest mulberries as doctors pluck bullets from the 21 because lo que se siembra se cosecha. Some bleed from the fall, staining the patio in tiny puddles. It all depends how far they fall, and when, and if. Next poem is for Anne Hesh, who tried therapy and to release the memory of what her father did to her as far back as her infancy, who declared her love for a woman in front of the world with the valor that comes from new love and its promise of eternity that tricks everyone sooner or later. So after it ended, she thought she had found love again and became a mother twice over. But that wasn't enough to wrest the poisoned seeds from her core her father had long planted. And when the day came that she slammed her car into a house, sparing the woman who lived there and the woman's pets, until the flames choked her brain shut, did she remember her father forced her so many times to believe that the only way for a child to be safe is to be born safe? Thank you.
Wow. What courageous poems. Wow.
Thank you.
Okay, so our last reader is Hila Ratzabi, and she'll read from her collection, There Are Still Woods, published by June Road Press in 2022. It won the Gold Nautilus Book Award in Poetry and was a National Indie Excellence Award finalist. There Are Still Woods is a radiant appraisal of life at the precipice of the climate crisis and a haunting elegy for all we stand to lose. Through alternating lenses from the speculative to the spiritual, from motherhood to science to mythology, Hila Ratzabi looks out at our wounded but vibrant planet and the animal experience of living on it. These poems are ways of framing and enduring loss, personal and collective and cultural, real and potential and anticipated. They impart a heightened appreciation for the solid and fleeting beauty that surrounds us. Here is an ode to the earth, a vision of its end, a celebration of its endurance, an aching and eloquent plea for intercession on its behalf. Ratzabi's first collection is a howl, a prayer, a premonition, a reawakening, an urgent call to action. Here are a few of her lines for you. Go outside, find a patch of grass, sand, dirt, sit, kneel, place a hand or just a finger on the soft earth. Feel it pulse back. Kate Knapp Johnson, who some of you know from Sarah Lawrence, said, I have read and reread these craft-wise poems. They are simultaneously strangely imagined, extraordinarily so, while accessible and wonderfully lyric. Even more important are the questions this poet asks of us, relentless, but mostly heavenly, fearful, and hope-filled. Please welcome Hila.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just blown away by all of the poems I heard today. Just honored to be reading with you poets and so happy to be here with you. I, being the last one, changed my order and my poems that I was going to read many times throughout listening. So I guess some of these are in conversation with some of the things I heard. So I'll start with some poems from the book, and I'll also read a couple of new ones as well. This is what the book looks like. Prayer before turning on the news. I sit before the TV screen, remote control in hand. I want it to stay this way, this dark, quiet room without a world in it. This nothing, this sweet nothing, the fire truck toy on the shelf. Look how it saves no one. In this room, there is nothing burning. Dear God, it is possible. You are the one with wings. Shelter us. Let something have been fixed today. The deal among the nations signed. The guns, all of them, taken away. A woman believed, a man contrite, a border covered in dust. God, I need to know what happened to those who tried to cross. What happened after the storm and earthquake and fire? I can't be everywhere at once, but you can. How can I convince you we are worthy of miracles? How much longer can I delay the inevitable knowing, the daily ritual of witness? At least bear it with me, dear God. Come sit on the couch, put your feet up. I'm making tea. Tell me how this will end. Tell me if there is a chance. Or maybe we can bargain for peace, trade for redemption. Give me something, anything, before I let the messengers into my room. I will not look away. Promise me you won't either. Of the veritable ocean. I trace the jagged residue with my feet. The sand presses grains to skin, and I press back so the sand feels wanted. Waves fall like the word what? What is happening to me? And how will all my creatures go? Who by oil? Who by bomb? Who by storm? Who by dry land, by famine? Who by what? What? Water. I feel the people wade and wallow into my open throat. I cough a question and swallow it back. Which one of you can hear me? Water pools around my feet, singing, you, but who? Willapa Bay. The 3/4 moon is tipped in the sky, still sleeping. Seagrass bristles, fulfilling its duty to the wind. I tip my head to match the angle of the moon, as though my ear could pull a tide from myself. The inner wave is calm but broils below, with a gratitude I'm careful not to drown in. What to do with it? Wind, weeds, water, earth. Now I know why they call you mother, how the tall grass waves in all our languages. Goodbye, hello, help us, help. How even when we go, the earth keeps us here. How living is nothing but a flutter of wings. The wind's one note catches in the branches of the great Sitka spruce with an effortless acceptance that opens some bowl in me to that sound. How can I walk away from this place that traces sky, mountain, water, wind in one seamless line? How can I walk away when I'm choked with the voice of the mother, parched from reciting the list of the dead. How can I walk away when the perfect horizon is killing me with a crazed love? Let me stay, let me stay. Let the cougar stalk, let the black bear roam. Come, come, beasts of earth, in your armies of fur and horn. Let your bodies rage us down. Make your nests in the abandoned house by the bay. Raid the fridge, ruffle up the beds. Let the land grab begin. We are not sorry. We are over. Let me stay. Let me go. I'm the earth's. I am wild from the future's howl. Cry, cry, crows on the shore. What have you heard? What have you seen? Tell me what the bay said when you insisted. Tell me where you've hidden the bones in the field. This next one was written actually in response to the Tree of Life shooting that occurred in Pittsburgh, which just had its 5-year anniversary on October 27th, just 2 days ago. How to pray while the world burns. Go outside, find a patch of grass, sand, dirt. Sit, kneel, place a hand or just a finger to the soft earth. Feel it pulse back. Open your palms and divine the words creased between. Rub the specks of dirt between your fingers. See how they cling to skin, how they listen in their soft, rough way. The earth will hold you better than God can. God could not stop the bullets or the sale of weapons. God could not block the open synagogue doors. Our God is trapped in the poisoned grass, where the blood of our brothers cries out, where the ants heave centuries on their backs. Pray to the God who sharpened the tiger's teeth, who stored the roar in its throat. Pray to the God who gave you lungs and tongue to sing and groan and hum. I swear to you, when the leaf shivers in the wind, you have given it chills from all its listening. The earth hears your prayer. There is nowhere for God to hide. Get down on your knees and let this precious earth soften for the weight of you. You are held. You are heard. The wind pulls its blanket over your back, smooths the hair from your face, touches your cheek with its cool, trembling hands. And I'll just read these two extremely new ones, so they may not be done, but I just felt like I should read them. I'm just going to open them up here. Okay. I mean, I literally wrote these a week ago, so really, here we go. 2 weeks after the war begins, October 22nd, 2023. I say I'm going to take a walk in the woods. I leave, I drive to the trail 18 minutes from home. It is sunny. I say, I want to see the leaves changing color before it's too late. I start walking. The people are too loud. They are not talking about the war, not looking at the trees. I put on my headphones, listen to a guided walking meditation, but the man's voice is like silk. It has no suffering in it. He says, feel your feet on the ground, but my boots are too soft, the paved path too smooth. I walk farther and farther till I lose the trail. Mud, leaves, red-winged blackbirds screaming in the berry bush. It is sunny. The leaves fan yellow fangs. I think I've lost the trail. I'll keep going. I should be scared. A branch scrapes my sweater as I duck under it. Where would I hide? What could camouflage my heavy breath? A forest could swallow you. I must be asking it to. I stop. 2 deer eating grass. I want to be near them. I slowly approach, sit a few feet away. One comes to me slowly like I had. I think maybe we can be here together, 2 animals. Maybe we can, but her eyes and ears flick distrust. The other deer behind her, smaller. Oh, mother, child, of course, I don't belong here. I turn back till I find the trail, the parking lot, 4.4 miles. I got nowhere. The trees are glorious. They don't care. The war has just begun. And one more. Okay. Late hunger, October 21st, 2023. The coral rose is still blooming, fake tongues thrust at the air. The last remaining bumblebees ravage the pink cosmos, purple asters, ravenous, each color an assault, each pink tinged with blood. The ground is wet. Gray clouds suffocate the cool air. It has been 2 weeks. The sparrows root in the dirt. My steps startle them. They erupt in wings. Here I come, monster of the garden, cataloging the dead. Their faces scrolling over the screen of my face. My body is far from the horror, but the birds can smell it on my breath. Don't they know I came here to put things in order, ready the beds for winter? I left all the dead coneflowers standing in their crisp shells for the seeds to fall, to feed the birds' late hunger. They will never let me near. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Wow. So I think we were meant to have a Q&A, but I think we're supposed to be off. Where's Mariah? Mariah, are you here? I think we're supposed to be off at 5:30, so I'm not sure we can.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, we could probably take a couple if the poets don't mind.
It's really up to the poets. I'm happy to. Do people have questions for the poets? Shall I look in the chat? Let us see. Do people post questions? I'm echoing back to myself, which is really unpleasant. Let's see. And Gila, I love that second to last poem with the trees and the deer. I thought it was beautiful. Let's see. I'm seeing lots of amazing comments of enthusiasm and praise and community and but I'm not seeing any questions. Can people, I can't see all of you. Does someone want to raise their hand? I can scroll through. That would be a lot easier than me just looking through the chat. Does anyone have a question for the poets? I'm going to scroll through the pages. Some people aren't showing as, aren't showing. Does anyone have a question? No? Everybody ready to go home? This was an amazing reading. Thank you all.
Sally,
Yeah, Jude.
it's Judy. I just want to say to everybody, thank you for coming, but to the poets whose work I've just been introduced to, I feel so grateful just in this moment. So thank you.
Yeah, it was really amazing to hear what a cluster. It was like a bouquet of poets. That's what it was. It was amazing. And did everybody who wanted to get the information about where to get the books get the information from the chat? I'm assuming. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for coming, and come next year we'll have another group. Okay. Take care, everyone. Stay well, and let's hope we're in a more peaceful place next year, certainly, but sooner than that, I hope. Okay. Night.